an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood, episode 19, The Death of the Undying. It's a contradiction. Intriguing title. Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? In this episode, yeah, one of them seems to die, but I'm pretty sure not really, right? I'm pretty sure not really, but right? But I'm pretty sure not really. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Max for commissioning this episode. How are all of you guys? So, let's see. Damien says, fun fact, Travis Willingham, who plays Roy, and Laura Bailey, who plays Lust, are married in real life and just had a kid last year. Oh, that's adorable. So this episode was a very action-packed. I really kind of thought it would be a little bit more low-key considering how high intensity the last couple episodes have been. But no, we are continuing to take it up notches. So first we open up with the scene of Al saying that he is going to go and help Roy because he has figured out that whatever they're doing is going to lead to whomever killed Hughes. And he is just well, I clearly need to be involved in that. But Ling, who gave Al all of this information, in my point of view, understandably, is yeah, but wait. You still haven't told me your secret yet. That was the whole deal. And Al is I will tell you all about it when I get back. And Ling says, that's not fair. And I just have to agree. At the same time, it's a good thing that Al was there. But also, Al didn't make the deal. This deal was made about him without his consent or contribution. But if it weren't for the fact that Al is a major character, one of the main players, I would have expected this to be one of those things where somebody's I'll tell you when I get back, and then they die in the field, inevitably, so that it's kept a mystery, which I'm pretty sure is what Ling is also concerned about here. But he doesn't have to worry because main character. So yeah, Al heads back out there, and of course we've got poor Winry, who is just staying worrying. And eventually he comes back, and they have this kind of cute reunion, but then his arm falls off. He looks in really bad shape by the time he comes back, to be fair. And then we jump to the assault that was already happening of Gluttony trying to choke Hawkeye to death. And she has shot him so many times, and he is not dying. He isn't even sustaining the injuries. She shoots one of his eyes out, and it's just sort of yeah, well. And her dog jumps on him and distracts him from the attack so that Gluttony chucks her away. And he's not even ouch. He says, stop it, that tickles. And then we have this dude whose name I don't know, guys, the one with the dark hair and glasses. He shows up with another gun and his own gun, and they unload their clips on this guy, and it does nothing. He just gets knocked backward, but by the time they've actually gotten him to the edge of the windowsill where he could potentially fall backward, they have run out of bullets. And at that point, he says, bullets gone? Goody, goody. I get to have dinner and dessert. And as he is coming toward them, his injuries once again fully fucking healed, all of a sudden, he goes flying out the window, and the camera pans over to Colonel Mustard, who is standing there with his glove outstretched and the electricity dancing across it, and he says, "I barely made it." And he's obviously very relieved to have saved his friends. Fury? Do you say it like Fury? That's the name of the guys, just for those who aren't here in the chat. People are telling me Furey for black-haired glasses guy, who I keep thinking of as Butters from Dresden Files. But Tony is saying Black Hayate is a good boy. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Black Hayate? I don't remember how she said it. So this moment doesn't go the way that I expected, though, because Hawkeye basically completely goes off on him, because she's like, the whole point of this exercise was for you to maintain plausible deniability and not get involved. That way, if shit went left, we would still have somebody in place who was not suspected of investigating this shit to carry on the investigation. And now, here you are, showing your entire hand, and you're going to ruin everything. So thanks for saving us and everything, and that's cool, but like, also, what the fuck? Are you an idiot? And I just found that so funny. She really goes off, and eventually it seems pretty clear she's in love with him. And I'm just going to say, you don't deserve her, sir. That's it. That's all I've got. Nobody does. As far as I am concerned, the only man in this entire series who maybe could have deserved her was Armstrong. Maybe. Perhaps. Maybe. Oh my God. B. Moore says, all of Roy's soldiers are named after military planes. The Mustang, the Hawkeye, the Fury, the Havoc, etc. Oh my God. That's amazing. Yeah, I completely should have like kind of seen this coming. And it's a shame, in my opinion, because I was really enjoying the sort of mutual respect professional relationship they had going on as a platonic thing. So, you know, I understand, like, most shows can't resist doing this kind of thing, but you guys all know how I feel mostly about romance and the properties that I cover. I'm not against romance in principle. It's just rarely done well or rarely interesting, and often feels like we're just going to create this well of cheap drama and draw from it whenever we don't really know how to keep the plot moving along. So, you know, I'm going to obviously not leap to conclusions here, because this show has felt like it has earned most things. So I don't want to, you know, leap to any judgments, but I'm just, because of me particularly enjoying that the two of them did not have a romantic thing, I'm a little bit bummed out about it. I'm not going to lie, especially because I continually feel like she's the one that's running the show, or should be. And so her being into someone that I feel is like her inferior, frankly, it's just like, there are just so many women out there who are like Hawkeye, who are amazing and capable, and they go for these dudes who are just, they're not up for it. And I hate to see it. Raise our standards, ladies. Come on. But anyway, so yeah, we have her going off on him. Why did you leave your post? And then the two of them head out, and they leave the dog and Fury together, and they have to keep their post in the clock tower. But yeah, he sent this guy flying off of the window ledge onto the roof of a neighboring building, and he starts driving off to, oh my God, right. So he's driving off, And he is with Hawkeye in the passenger seat, and Al comes running up and is like, are you going to be going after the people who probably killed Hughes? And there's a moment of Mustard looking at him kind of like, this is a kid and this whole thing. And then he decides, I'm not going to treat him like a child. And he says, do you want in? And Al gets in the car. And so then, as they are driving, Barry the Chopper is running beside the car as his body runs alongside them on the rooftops of the buildings above him. And I really appreciate, because again, guys, with Hawkeye, Colonel Mustard is like, I took care of that guy. I scorched him and threw him off a ledge. And she's like, yeah, and I filled him with bullets. And he really did not seem to mind that at all. Like, using her head. And this is when Al has to chime in and is like, did he, by any chance, have an Ouroboros tattoo? And she's like, yeah, he did. And Al's like, okay, so bad news. He's a homunculus. And you cannot kill him. So, I'm sorry. And initially, Mustang is like, but that's impossible. And fucking sweet potato Al is like, it is possible because I met one. But I understand if you don't believe me. Oh my God, me and Al are such different people. Me, I'd be like, yeah, they fucking are. What is wrong with you? I just said a thing. I'm not just talking out of my ass. Do you think I'm wasting my breath here? Why would I say it if it's not real? Meanwhile, Al is like, well, you're entitled to your opinion. He's just so like, you know. Anyway, so, once this information is out there and they begin to realize like the potential of what they're up against, and he even talks about greed, and I watched him get the whole top of his head knocked off, and he just came back together and was fine in a couple minutes. And eventually Mustang comes to the conclusion, wait, so I fried him to a crisp and threw him 40 feet, and you're saying he's fine, probably. And Al is like, I kind of think probably he is. So then they come to the facility. It's the third laboratory, right? And there's this great sequence of each of them looking around the corner in that like real cartoony, like heads popping up sort of way. And it's just so funny when it ends with Barry the Chopper. I am going to tell you guys, the loss of Barry the Chopper this episode really got to me. Like, I didn't want him to be, he's just been such a leavening in the midst of all of this like really heavy bullshit. We needed him, you know, and now he's gone and I'm just sad about it. You know, I like, as much as when you realize that he's still alive right at the end for a moment, there was a bit of me that was like, really? We can't even kill Barry the Chopper, huh? Like, because I want there to be consequences to things. So I want characters to feel like they're in real danger. And for that to feel real, you have to kill some people. So there was a tiny bit of me that was like, oh man, even Barry gets out of it. But mostly I was like, oh, good, Barry's fine, you know? And then his fucking body shows up, and it's such a bittersweet moment because, like, it's really, his body seems to know what he's doing right here. His body is like, finally, we can both rest. That is the vibe I get, even though there's not a lot of real evidence for that beyond the look of excitement and how he goes directly for the blood sigil, you know? But I think it was purposeful. And he rubs it out. And you can just hear Barry being like, no, wait, don't. And his spirit leaves, and then his body drops. And it's interesting to think about how the body, even though the spirit wasn't in it, continued to live and move and exist. And once the spirit that it is actually linked to is gone, regardless of the fact that there is another spirit that has been put into it, it will die. And I think if I'm understanding that scene correctly, that's what it seems like. That's pretty interesting. It's like suggesting that the way that the soul's connection with the body works is not as simple as that's just a vessel and your soul is a separate thing. And I kind of appreciate that, because the treatment of the body as a completely separate thing from your soul has always felt a little, it's felt simplistic, and it's also felt like a tiny bit optimistic. Honestly, like we just kind of, I think, as people who have a lot of issues with body image, our desire to completely divorce ourselves from our bodies as part of our identity feels like it's really laced with some problematic motivations, if that makes sense. So I like this idea that basically it doesn't matter that somebody shoved some other fucking spirit in there. It's not his, and his body knows it. And, you know, once the spirit is gone, the body dies. There's something sort of beautiful about that they're still connected in that really strong way. So yeah, they're keeping an eye on this place that the body ran into, the third laboratory. And I love that Mustang says, so this ties them directly to the military. That's all we need for now. We're pulling back. And I was like, so this ties them directly to the military. I mean, hadn't we already? But I guess they hadn't. And fucking Barry says, well, you have fun with that, and just runs in there. I was just cracking up at this. For some reason, I expected him to listen to Mustard. Why? What motivation has he had to do what people say at this point? Shit has changed. Of course he's gonna just do whatever the fuck. You know? Like, this cracked me up. And he goes running in, and this is when Mustang says, well, I guess it's our lucky day, because it's a perfect, like, you know, excuse to go barging in there and pretend that it's like on official business. And I love Barry running past everybody saying, I don't want any of your boring old skin and bones. I have something special, you know? So then we have Mustang come in. All personnel must evacuate immediately. And the man who broke in is a deranged murderer. And I cannot lie to you guys. If it does not make sense, I will admit it, okay? Barry the Chopper is objectively a deranged murderer. And yet, I felt offended. I was like, hey! And, like, I know he has to actively talk up how bad this guy is for the sake of this whole bit that they're doing. And still, a part of me was like, come on, be nice. Why? So, yeah, my men will handle the capture. Order your guards to seal off all the exits. And then we have them advancing. And this whole scene, everybody gets split up here. And of course, whenever somebody's like, we're going to have to split up, I'm like, no. Immediately, it's a red flag. And Havoc and Mustang, I'm going to keep calling him Mustard. I just like it better. They walk into this room where there's a bunch of abandoned equipment. And it's sort of weird because while this building is obviously manned, like there's a lot of staff upstairs. There's a ton of people who are working a few floors up. Down here, it's like an abandoned mental hospital kind of vibe, you know? There is a lot of evidence of shit not being handled in a humane way that has not been, like, got rid of. And you'd really think in, like, a facility that's, we're continuing to use it, it's being actively, like, there are people in it every day, you would really think that they might at least try to get rid of the evidence of potential torture or vivisection or whatever. And they just haven't. It's just around. I don't know if it's supposed to be that just the homunculi are just using this space and the people upstairs aren't aware of it, but that's worse. You know, like it's in the same building and you're just not aware that or they're covering for it, but this looks like unofficial to me. I don't know. It's unclear. So forgive me, guys. I'm going to turn down my brightness on this ring light because I was like washed out. So anyway, they're looking at it and like, this looks like it was painful for somebody. And then all of a sudden, here comes lust. It's bad enough that you stood me up on our date, and now you point a gun at me? You've got some nerve, don't you? And I was just like, she has decided they are going to die. Like, as soon as she completely outs herself as the woman that Havoc was seeing, I was like, oh, this is bad news. I was hoping she would try and keep it on the DL a little bit so she could maintain her contact. But if she doesn't care about that anymore, then these two are dead. And I didn't really actually think that they were going to die, but I am aware of her abilities. You know, we've seen what she has been able to do before, and I felt like at the very least it's possible for Havoc to die. And it feels like he almost does by the end of this episode, but he seems like he's going to be okay, because at the very end, Mustard says something like, get a doctor for Havoc. Maybe Havoc winds up dying off screen. I don't know. It doesn't really feel like the way the show would do things, though. So I'm going to say he's probably still okay. And, like, personally, I have grown to really like Havoc already. So then we get the best moment in, I don't want to say the whole series, because that's just not correct. But I will say in the last few episodes, probably, where he's just like, wait, what's going on? And they realize that she has the Ouroboros tattoo. And her boobs bounce up and down with a literal boing, boing sound. It's like, it's Looney Tunes. It's literally Looney Tunes. Quit staring. It's not very polite. And then each of her boobs jumps in a different direction, like she's Terry Crews. And it's incredibly not the way boobs work. But I can't even be mad because it's so funny. And then, after quit staring, it's not very polite, Mustard says, I can see how she tricked you so easily. You've always been a sucker for big boobs. And I'm like, a sucker for big boobs? I'm sure. And then the best moment, Havoc. I can't help it. I love him. And he's like in a spotlight with stars floating around him. Oh my God, you guys. I don't know what I like more. The absurdity of her boobs bouncing around. Mustard immediately being like, oh, okay, it's all coming together. I get it now. Or Havoc's utter lack of a defense. But it all just is so, it's just such a weird moment. It's so tonally off from everything else, and I just love it so much. And I mean, guys, I think we all have a moment, like a particular thing in our lives where we're like, looking back, I was unfairly influenced by like this physical feature on this person, and I should have known better, but I am a sucker for that. And for me, it's when a dude is tall. Is he hot or is he just tall? That is the eternal question. And I have let men get away with some shit because they are tall. I won't lie to you. It's not something I'm proud of. There it is. We all have our thing. Yeah, Damien says it's not even treated in a perverted way. It's entirely 100% humorous. And like, yeah, that's what's so interesting about this is that like you could try and say, well, this is like a really sexual thing. And I'm like, I mean, technically, but the energy of this scene does not feel like that at all. It feels like we're talking about kids and candy or something. You know what I mean? It's just, it doesn't have that sort of vibe. And so it really works. It's just so good. So anyway, I just had to screen share for that moment with the people in the chat because I found that shit, it took me so by surprise. I just figured her boobs were going to continue to be the unspoken thing in the room. The two giant elephants. And then they're actually addressed in such a direct way. And I was just not ready for that at all. So this is when he's like, did you tell this woman anything? And Havoc says, no, I never mentioned a single thing about work. And she sort of gets a weird look on her face here that I couldn't read. It almost feels like either she's giving him a reproachful look because maybe he's lying, or she's a little bit like, yeah, you didn't. And that was super annoying. I couldn't tell, you know, but, this is when he's like, so, Hughes, you have anything to do with that? And she's like, I mean, bitch, I might have. And he shoots her, which comes apparently as quite a surprise. She did not expect that. Why not? Why did you not expect that, Lust? Did you think that your boobs held that much charm? I mean, I'm sure that they've gotten you through some sticky places before. But also, come on. And when he says get on your knees, I was like, and there's a comment here from Candace. What do you think about how the concept of lust was portrayed in this? Lust was both attractive, but very bloodthirsty. Both are lusty. And then the English VAs of Mustang and Lust are married. What did you think of their chemistry in this episode? The on your knees banter killed me. The on your knees happens over and over again. It keeps happening. I was willing to let it go the first time, but then when it continually is, I'll get you on your knees yet. See, I found a way to get you on your knees. I was like, okay, we get it. Oh my God. Like, it's one of those things that I really wonder as a kid if I would have, because I like picked up on sexual stuff as a kid a lot, even when it was very, you know, sort of subtle. I was still like, I feel like this has to do with dicks. Something's up. And I feel like I would have picked up on this because it's like so repetitive, but maybe not. I just don't feel like they talk this way to anybody else that they've encountered so far. I don't remember them demanding anybody else get on their knees. Might be wrong about that. So yeah, she then says, sorry to say it's going to take more than you're capable to make me get on my knee. And then he shoots her again. And I was just like, she has straight up told him, you don't know where the clit is. I'm not going to be part of it. Oh my god, this cracked me up. It's just so laced with so much. And the fact that it's like between the two of them and Havoc is right there. And Havoc is the one that was seeing her. Like, do you think Havoc was like a little jealous of Mustard at this moment and was like, I'm the one that should be having the sexy banter. What the fuck? I'm right here, you know? Oh my god. So he shoots her several more times, and she just keeps sort of like doubling over, but she doesn't even fall to the ground or anything. And this is when Havoc realizes that she's a homunculus. How very astute of you, but I doubt you've seen this one. And she shows off her freaky fingers, as he puts it, slices her chest open, and is like, look. And there's a philosopher's stone in her chest. And she says, I was created with this at my core. It's not just a legend. It's my heart. But then later, a moment later, she says, aside from a few things, I was made nearly identical to you. I am human. Bitch, no, you're not. Come on. Come on. Come on. No, you're not. You have a philosopher's stone instead of a heart. You can be shot 60 times and just stand there. Your fingers turn into death blades that can cut steel. You are not human. Knock it off. I am offended that you would attempt that bullshit right now. Just be whatever freaky fucking thing you are and stand by that. You don't need to pretend to be human for this to matter. That's not a part of it. And I don't know who you think you're convincing with this argument after what you've just done in front of them. You just cut your chest open and pulled it apart so they could see how you're made. You are not at all remotely approaching human. So don't. I don't know, maybe you were lied to about this by father, and he is just a dirty, dirty liar. So it's something that you're going to have to go and deal with in therapy, but you can't keep misrepresenting things. And that's all I got to say about that. So then we have this moment. Okay. She tells, because Mustard is like, you're just going to kill us, aren't you? And she's like, oh yeah, no, I definitely am. And slashes at them, and he starts to try and use his alchemy, and she just cuts a water main so that his glove with the circle on it gets wet, and he can't use it. Which, honestly, he does need a tattoo. Like, I am curious, though, if he had a tattoo and his hand got wet, does that keep it from working? Like, if he had a tattoo and he was sweating, would that interfere with it? I'm curious about, like, where the line is with that, you know? But they run to the door, and they're hiding on either side of the open doorway. And this is when Roy says she flooded the room with water, a simple transmutation, and we've got hydrogen gas. And he touches the floor, does the transmutation, and then Havoc tosses in a lit lighter, which later on he's extremely regretful to have destroyed because it was a gift from one of his ex-girlfriends. I love the one of his ex-girlfriends. Look, I'm just going to say it. I have a crush on Havoc. I do. I can't help it. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, it's probably because he's like the tallest character on the show, other than maybe Armstrong. So, what can I say? But I can definitely see him having many ex-girlfriends because there's just a vibe to him. He's just got it, whatever it is. And then we have the explosion followed by Fullmetal Alchemist. So at this point, you and I both know this bitch is not gone, right? They did the thing. I hate this. I'm just so mad about it. They did the thing where they turn their back on Jason because they managed to like kind of strangle him. And then they, for some reason, despite hitting him with a car, shooting him 11 times, electrocuting him, drowning him, they think that this like 4 seconds of strangling, that really did the trick. And they turn their back on Jason, and then all of a sudden they get stabbed. And you're just like, well, of course. So, fucking Roy, she's dust. I definitely cremated her. I can tell by the stench. I'm pretty familiar with that stink by now. And he then says, but for all we know, she could still regenerate, so stay alert. And he says that just as blades come up out of the floor. And these blades are like 10 feet long. She is not here to play with these. And they go right fucking through Havoc's abdomen from the back. It's really bad. This is like a sincere wound. She gets Mustang later, but she gets him sort of in the side, like maybe she like nicked a kidney or something. But Havoc, that's a gut wound that can go septic. Like there is a very good chance this dude is gonna die. So yeah, this like is so sudden too because of him just saying stay alert. It's just well timed to actually be pretty shocking because so much of the time things like this, they'll be like, stay alert. Who knows what could happen? Beat. 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 I'm alive! And you're like, yeah, I know you're alive. We knew. I knew. Come on. But the timing of this is done in such a way that I was really like, oh, she's already back. Like, I knew she wasn't dead, but I didn't think it would be right then, you know? So, yeah, he is skewered and goes down. She stands up and completely reforms and tells him that dude's a dead man. And then she's like, I'm going to go for him. I'm gonna go for Roy now. There's nothing you can do to kill me anyway. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna. And Roy says, then I guess you won't mind if I do this. And he reaches into her chest and he takes the Philosopher's Stone out of her body. And she immediately turns to dust and ash. So, as she vanishes, he goes over to Havoc and look. I might have done this too. It feels logical. In the moment, I'm not mad at it. I was mad that they turned their back on her. I was mad that he was so confident that he killed her. Like, why do you think that's even possible right now, dude? He says, for all we know, she can regenerate, but it doesn't seem to enter his mind. Yeah, you can smell, the smell of human flesh burning, and fucking Havoc is like, oh, do you remember that from Ishvala? And I was like, hey man, wow. Just like, war crimes, huh? Dude, come on. But he says, I don't know much about medical alchemy, but this should amplify my abilities. And he's holding it. And she reforms around it on his hand and says, it really feels like you should take a girl out to dinner first before you put her hand in her chest. Show, calm down. And really, the idea of her reforming while he held that in his hand never entered my mind. There was a split second where I misunderstood the animation, actually, and I thought he was using the stone to heal Havoc, and Havoc's body turned into hers. Like, she took the material that made Havoc and reformed it into making her own body. But no, she doesn't even need to do that. She's reforming out of thin air, which that's so much worse. So, this moment, she jabs him, gets him through the kidney area, and we jump over to the Fuhrer being like, hey, what's going on? Oh, Roy's out there. Well, let me go help him. And they're like, oh, we'll send backup. And he's like, no. I'll do it myself. It's fine. Not suspicious at all. And eventually, like at the end of everything, we just see him listening in, sheathing his sword, and walking away. So he does not get involved, and he is very cautious that nobody sees him, and he doesn't give himself away by taking a side in whatever went on, So then we go to Al he is walking around with Hawkeye, and they have come across Barry the Chopper's body, and he's standing over him himself, kind of, and his body is all tore up, and he says, you got here too late, which I thought meant that he had started to chop himself. It looks like it could be because of the blood, but I couldn't totally tell if this is just because his next line is, look at this mess, my body is damn near entirely decayed, which for me felt like he is beginning to decompose so much that blood is just pouring out of him because his tissues are breaking down. But did he get a chance to chop himself? It doesn't really matter, but I wasn't sure. And at this point, Al says, because, Barry mentions, I guess a body can't handle just having some random fucking soul in it. Al says, if a soul is incompatible with another person's body, wouldn't it be the same for a soul bonded to a suit of armor? If that's right, there's no guarantee I'll be able to stay in this form long enough to get our old bodies back. It's an interesting question, and a connection that I wouldn't have made, and I have to be honest, I don't really buy, only because there's no connection with this armor to a different soul. It feels like a body has a problem because that body had a soul that was meant for it. And if we're going to, keep going with my thesis from earlier about how this is meant to show that there's a deeper bond between them, a suit of armor doesn't have that. So it feels like for me, the cause of the decay is more the conflict of the body with the wrong soul or without a soul at all, versus a suit of armor, which doesn't have a soul associated with it. So a soul being attached to it is not in direct conflict with any pre-existing state that the suit of armor was in, if that makes sense. Again, this is all completely invented. I have no basis for any of this. It's just sort of the vibe, but I may be very, very wrong. So I'm just telling you my theory. So here comes lust. And this, oh my God. So there's a couple of things that happen here. First of all, Barry is just like, oh, sweet, I get to cut you up, finally. And he comes running at her in midair with this flippy-do twist in the air. It's like a fucking, he does a Simone Biles full on through the air Which just truly, if you are anybody familiar with combat, you're just leaving yourself like way too wide open. This is the sort of thing that Indiana Jones would just pull out a gun and shoot you in midair. Like, there's no point. But he goes flying through the air with the greatest of ease, and she just slices him out of the air with one shot. No effort. It's an instant. It's not even a fight. She's swatting a fly. And honestly, again, I just felt so sad over it because I really thought he was dead right here. We see like the spark in his eye go out and everything, you know? And then we have her turning to Hawkeye, and she says something about how, because Al steps between her and Hawkeye, and then he does some transmutation without drawing a circle, indicating that he has opened the portal, as she puts it, which would make him a good candidate for sacrifice. And she says, "Oh, it's a shame to kill another potential sacrifice." And he's like, wait, what? And Hawkeye zeroes in on that and is like, wait, are you saying you killed? Wait. And then she just screams, "You bitch," and shoots Lust like 8 times with her one gun. And then she shoots Lust like another 8 times with the other gun that she has at the small of her back. And then she shoots Lust like another like 9 or 10 times with the pistol that she has under one arm. And honestly, her just continually yanking guns from different places and continuing to shoot was amazing. I loved this scene so much. Like, it doesn't accomplish anything. I know it won't. I'm pretty sure Hawkeye knows it won't. But that's not really the point, you know? And I will say, as much as I was talking about Fury earlier reminding me of Butters, Hawkeye is 100% Lieutenant Murphy. I mean, just like 100% Karen Murphy. So, just establishing that. So, of course, Lust is fine and does the whole, "Are you done?" And there's this awful moment where Hawkeye just realizes that, like, whatever is done and it's too damn late. And also, I am going to die. It's like this really, the combination here of the emotions on her face is pretty rough. And she just falls to her knees sobbing. And that is when Al steps between them. And the two of them begin fighting, and she is able to slice his weapon up like no problem. And then shoves some of her creepy fingers through him also. And she keeps trying to he keeps trying to tell Hawkeye to run. And Hawkeye keeps telling him to run. And he's just like, "I'm absolutely not doing that." So, and Lust like yanks his jaw off. And in the midst of this, suddenly, here comes Colonel Mustard with the he's bringing the heat in the most literal possible way. And he hits her. And for a moment, I didn't realize that they show Al creating this shield of metal. And I was just like, did he just unleash a fucking nuke in this room with his friends? Like, what are you doing? And then I realized finally, oh, okay, Al created a barrier and he's protecting them. But like for a minute, I didn't realize that was what was going on. And I was like, this feels so incredibly irresponsible. So he carved the transmutation circle into his hand. Again, like what if she spat on it? Just asking. And he's using the flint in the lighter. And we get a sequence of him lighting her up, literally, and her skin being like blown off her body by the heat and the screaming of the pain. And it's pretty gruesome, guys. Like, there is a lot of sort of the imagery of the creepy mom demon that was in the failed human transmutation is repeated here with her partially burned off face and skull and exposed like eyeball and everything. So she's just, it's repeatedly, he keeps hitting her with it like over and over. And the screaming that this voice actress does, I really got to give her credit, because she fully was like, okay, let's think. How would it sound if I was being burned to death? And she just fucking hit it hard. Went with it. There was commitment. And the way that this is animated is just fascinating. I love the way it's done, because it's occasionally just in the same style as everything else. Sometimes it's like slightly rougher. And then there are times where it's like full on impressionistic, like painting, you know? It's wild. And she comes at him with her creepy fingers again, and we get like a Mission Impossible moment. Do you guys remember that? Of the, I think it was like a helicopter crashes, and there's the of one of the propellers that comes within like a millimeter of Tom Cruise's face, and that's like what's going on right here. And then it crumbles away. He has finally managed to burn her enough times. And it's weird because she's frozen looking at him for a second, and she seems to be fine. But then she just says, "You killed me. I hate losing, but there are worse ways to die than at the hands of a man like you. I love how cold and focused your eyes are. I look forward to the day when those eyes will be wide with agony." And her hair is blowing in the wind, and then it just blows away, and then her flesh just blows away, and then her skeleton just blows away, and then the Philosopher's Stone drops to the floor and sits there for a moment, and then it just blows away. And I was really surprised that when she said killed, it seems like she really means it. I am assuming this isn't actually the death of lust so much as lust will be like reformed at some point, but we need a new Philosopher's Stone to do it, I'm assuming. But I honestly don't know. I don't know how this works, you know? Like, we had greed killed by being lowered into fucking lava, was it? Whatever it was. And his essence was sort of collected back by the father and like drank like a fucking creepy communion, you know? Is that possible when the father is not in control of the death of the being? Like, do you know what I'm saying? I don't know how permanent this is, but regardless, because the Philosopher's Stone like cracks and falls apart and disappears, I trusted at that point, okay, she can't just reform right away, you know? So then we have the falling apart of Colonel Mustard. He managed to keep it together just long enough to be able to pull this off. And she had asked him, like, what about the injury? Like, I definitely stabbed you. And he's like, oh yeah, I cauterized the wound. I did almost pass out from the pain. Y'all, I could never. I cannot understand the mindset of people who can like handle a lot of pain. It just could not be me. I am a fucking wimp isn't even the word. Like, no, sir. It would be bad. I often talk about how I'd like to get into a fist fight. And the truth is, the only reason that I think that I might be able to come out on top is because the pain would enrage me so bad. But once it was over, it would be like getting really drunk for the first time, where you're just like, I'm never going to drink again. One fist fight, I think I'd be done, you know? And I may be very, very wrong. I might just pass out from the pain in the middle of the fight. You can't really, like, control that unless you've got some training, and I do not. So, no. Oh my God. Candace says, my ex broke my finger once during a fight, and I set it myself and then waited a full day before going to ER and needed surgery. Yeah, you're a maniac. Nope. My cat steps on me too hard, and I'm like, ow, oh my God. It's pitiful. Erica says, scroll up a little in the chat to see the answer to what if she spat on it. I'm sorry, Erica, but out of context. What if Lust spat on it? What if indeed? Let's see. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find the spot, but, by the way, the Fullmetal Alchemist thing is where the commercial breaks would have been. Oh, no. Yeah, I figured that. Let's see. B. Moore says, it's not the tattoo. His circle lets him split the air into oxygen and flammable gases. His glove is made of ignition cloth to cause a spark. Oh. So it's not the transmutation circle that's drawn on it. So the water affected the cloth. Oh, I see what you guys are saying. So because he had the flint from the lighter, and I guess, like, he could. What happened to the glove, though? If the glove was needed for the ignition, but he still needs the transmutation circle, couldn't he at least have just used the glove for the circle part and not carved the circle into his hand? Like, or I'm just not, like, I'm thinking of them as two completely separate things, and that might not be the way it works. Candace says it's explained a lot more later, by the way. Okay. Well, then maybe you guys don't need to answer my question then, if it's going to be later. But yeah, oh, Tony says Lust cut up the glove after she stabbed him. Okay. Yeah, I didn't catch that either, Erica. Okay. So because I was like, it seemed like pretty extreme length to go to. That's part of why I assumed that was linked with the, actual, like, circle itself, but okay. I'm getting it. That makes sense. Okay, so this is when he is like, yeah, you really need to get a doctor for our friend Havoc because he has been taken out. And then Al comes back and Winry is just so relieved to see him. And he's rubbing his head in that sort of like bashful, sheepish way. And his arm just fucking falls off. And it's honestly pretty funny. And then we have the moment inside still where Barry the Chopper is still rattling around on that piece of steel. And he's like, oh, God, that was close. I'm really glad that I managed to make it through that one. But then his bleeding body picks him up and he is crying and happy. And he keeps dragging his fingers across the circle, the sigil. And this was what was sort of unclear because there was a feeling almost of like, I recognize my soul and I'm excited to see it again. And I couldn't tell if it was, I'm excited to see it again and I'm running my fingers across it because I recognize what's going on here and I'm just trying to somehow like get a connection. Or if it was, I know that if I destroy this, we will finally get to rest. And that second one is kind of what I want to think, but it also feels a little bit too cohesive of a thought for what we have seen about how his mind is working because he's got an animal spirit in him, apparently. So I think it's probably the first one that he doesn't exactly know what he's doing as he's doing it. But yeah, he manages to break it. Barry disappears and his eyes go white and he just falls to the ground. So then we have Ed walking away from Armstrong and Co. after being brought back to his hometown. Was it Resembool? And he walks over to his mom's grave. And there is a Zaddy standing there with his back to him, and a real sense of, I know my son is standing behind me, so let me turn around extremely dramatically. There's just, I don't know, it's like he knows Ed is there, and I can't tell if that's actually true or if it's just because this guy tends to behave very high drama at all times, which I would also definitely believe that. I've already said how I feel about his entire look and what it means about him as a person. But yeah, that is the end of the episode, is Ed coming up and seeing that his dad is standing there. And I don't know what to think of this guy. And like, Ed doesn't say dad or father, or he calls him by his first name, which is just always so jarring, you know? I know that that's like a thing, but it works on me. And this guy, like, we know that he doesn't seem to feel any sort of remorse for abandoning his family as far as we've seen. So I just don't know what to predict in terms of the interaction they're going to have. Like, I assume Ed's going to be like, are you going to fucking tell me about Philosopher's Stones or what? Like, are you going to do this? Is he going to yell at him? Is he going to be scared of him? Like, I truly don't know what to expect from this. It's one thing to know how Ed feels privately, but the way you behave when you're around a person who is like an authority figure that you have a lot of resentment towards, that's like a whole other fucking ball game, you know? Let's see. You expect me to say rest in pieces about Dear Barry? Nah, death by chopclet. Michael, I don't even need to ban you. You're just digging your own grave here amongst your own peers. Let their judgment weigh upon you. That is my just judgment. The truth is the guy just has too awesome of a name to not say. Yeah, what is it again? I forgot what his name is. And it starts with an H, right? I keep wanting to say like Hempstool because he's a bartender. Hohenheim. Will Ed have restraint? We will find out next time. Yeah, it's sort of like he doesn't seem to be able to do that. But again, people, when you're around family, your whole personality can change. It's wild. I'm sure you guys have seen this in action or seen it in yourself and been like, what is happening to me? But it is a phenomenon that is very real. So I would not be at all surprised if, like, you know, Ed just behaves in a way that I wouldn't have expected from him at all. So Erica says Hempstool. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably going to be what I go with. No offense, guys. Like, I'm just making up names for characters anyway, unless they have like a great name. I mean, Armstrong, come on, obviously. And then Havoc is just so good. Hawkeye, I mean, yeah. So when it works for the characters, I'm just going to leave it. But sometimes they don't deserve me saying their real name. And even though Mustard didn't actually kill Ross and he set that whole thing up, I still just don't really like him. So, you know, I can acknowledge that he did a good thing and he was very clever and competent with it, but I also just might not be enough. I'm sorry, buddy. Just might not be enough. Anyway, all right. So we are going to wrap up, but thank you guys again for coming and hanging out with me on this Friday evening. And I'm really excited to keep covering this, guys. I know that there's one coming up. I think that Max sent me a list and that the next episode that has an after credit scene is 24, I think. I'll double check that, but it is going to be coming up. So I'm kind of excited to see what that's about again. All right, guys, I'm wrapping. Thank you guys again so much. Thank you, Max. And I will see you soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Unspoiled Network podcast.